Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you all for showing up tonight. This event is a two-part series of workshops leading up to Icon 2020. Icon is an annual art convention held by Montserrat College of Art in collaboration with Paper Asylum that gives students and alumni a chance to sell and showcase their work. This year, Icon will be held virtually. Our official release is in early November. If you're interested in having your work showcased and linked via Icon 2020, you can either email us now at icon@montserrat.edu or keep an eye out for Icon 2020 application form in your Montserrat email. We'll be posting the email address and the link to Icon 2020 website in our chat. Also, for anybody interested, we've made these really lovely icon buttons. So if you would like, you can add your campus mailbox number to the chat and we could put a sanitized button in your mailbox for you to pick up at your leisure. Today's workshop is going to be about merchandise and selling your merchandise. And we're excited to have Ashlee Beadle with us tonight to share her experience. Yay. So Ashlee is a freelance editorial and book illustrator residing in Beverly. She graduated from Montserrat in 2017 after self-publishing her thesis work, Coping Mechanisms, and now has an online shop selling her most recent designs and illustrations. Her work typically revolves around journal illustrations, everyday life, and drawing fashionable fish with legs. Most recently, she's completed illustrations for small books published by Simon & Schuster. Most of her work can be found on her website, ashbeadle.com, as well as her Twitter and Instagram. That's also under ashbeadle. As we go on, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we can get back to you during the Q&A section of tonight's workshop. And with all that being said, Ashlee, I'm going to throw it over to you.
All right, thank you, AJ. So like AJ said, we'll be starting tonight just with a brief presentation and then open up to any comments or questions you have in the chat, or if you want to ask them out loud, that's cool too. So let's get started. Okay, can everyone see that? Everyone has their mics off. I can see some people saying
Yeah,
yes.
we can see.
Awesome. So tonight we're going to be talking about merchandise and selling your own, kind of stepping point from the shop talk. So as of this point, if some of you have started your own online shop, you kind of know where you want to work, but you're not exactly sure where to go with how you're going to sell it, how you need to get the merchandise, things like that. This will be for you. So we're going to start with talking about printers. So one of my favorite things about when I was at Montserrat was the quality of the printers, the scanners, being able to use that resource. I definitely recommend taking advantage of it if you have prints. Zines are a little bit harder, but if you're doing kind of like lower quality printer paper ones, it's just some of the simpler ones that you can fold yourself, definitely take advantage of those. However, once you graduate, you don't really have those options anymore. So definitely make that choice after graduation on if you want to jump to using a service. There's a million of them out there, or if you want to buy a printer for yourself. I recently purchased one. It works great. It's especially good for doing prints kind of on demand, especially for my shop, so I only have to print a certain amount at a time. And if it doesn't do so well, then I'm not stuck with a bunch of back stock and everything like that. But if you do go with the service similar to CatPrint, you can request paper samples, and I highly, highly recommend getting paper samples from sites. They're so useful. Up in the right-hand corner, I just showed what CatPrints looks like. It's this tiny little book, and it has the thickness, the quality, how shiny it is, if it is matte or not. It's a great resource to have, especially when you're not really sure what you're looking for. Paperweight varies, or places have paperweight variances that you might know what it feels like, but maybe their quality is a little bit different. It's definitely helpful. And I always recommend doing a ton of research first. Find what fits right for you, especially with those paper samples. A lot of times they're free. If they're not, I've never paid more than $5 for a pack, and they're super helpful. And definitely also ask friends, ask other artists what they use. My printer is relatively new, but once I did get it, I had at least 3 people ask me the brand of printer I got. How is it? Does it handle stickers? Things like that. And it's super helpful to be able to share that resource with other people. From that, like I said, use resources that you have. You're at Montserrat. If you have access to the printers, definitely use them. They're great for classes, but also you're paying for it. So you may as well, if you're doing work, take advantage of what you have. Even if you're not at Montserrat, if your parents have printers, if they're nice printers, if you have a roommate that has a printer, definitely like see if you can come up with some sort of agreement that you pay for ink or you pay for the paper or something like that, just to see what you can do to be able to use what's in your immediate area. But definitely as well, think about those long-term investments, especially if you are a traditional artist. Scanner is super helpful. I got mine right after graduation. I've had it for 3.5 years now. It's great. It still works fantastically. It's actually an Epson, and it was relatively cheap, about $150, $200. So if you kind of have that money saved up, and it's a great investment that'll last you for a while. Definitely as well with investing kind of in your shop, invest in the space if you have it. I know the dorms can't always be a space that is always 100% yours, but it helps if you have shelving, it helps if you have specific closet space. I keep every box I ever get because it helps with the storage, and I don't have a lot of it. So here on the right, you can see that's actually where I keep most of my stuff. It's just right next to my desk. I keep it close by so that I can easily access things, especially when I have a lot of orders to ship out. It makes it so simple to be able to just reach down, grab it, and then be able to move on. Most things are there. I do keep some larger things off to the side. I recently finished some tote bags. Those are hanging up so they don't get wrinkled. But everything else is in a box or in a very specific place where I can find it. And it's super, super helpful to be able to invest in that kind of long-term resource so that you don't end up losing things in the future. And just lastly, with printers and space, definitely take risks, do a ton of testing. Especially if you're printing it on your own, you might not always get the color right. And it's great to be able to just, especially if you have your own printer, just kind of sit there and print as many color variations so you can see what you really like. And especially with paper too, like maybe you have a couple different paper samples. Think about what printer works best with what paper, what print looks best on what kind. Definitely something to think about if you do have your own resources. So from there, these are a lot of the sites I've used either in the past or recently. These are just sites that I use. It is would be incredibly difficult to make a list of all of the different sites. But these ones are the ones I rely on the most. So recently I did a poster design and I ordered test prints from Vista and Zazzle because they were the cheapest, but also pretty good quality. I really only rely on them for posters, especially now that I have a printer, just because I can't print that large, and I don't make posters that often, but they're definitely a good resource, especially Vistaprint if you're doing business cards. They have smaller posters. They do prints. I'm not 100% on how well they turn out with their like smaller quality things, but I think they have more options than their larger ones. I believe they also do stickers and they do some fabric options as well. They're kind of all-encompassing, which is definitely a helpful resource, especially if you don't have a lot of options or a lot of recommendations. Zazzle I haven't really used all that much except recently. They shipped relatively quickly. The quality was nice. Definitely someone I would recommend or use in the future, especially Vistaprint gets a little too expensive sometimes. Catprint I used pretty much exclusively for all my smaller prints until I got my printer. It's, like I said earlier, you get the sample pack. It's pretty simple to use. You upload your art, you're able to choose the paper, choose the size. I believe you can do custom sizes. It's a pretty nice resource. They ship relatively quickly, and they're pretty cheap, like cheap for the quality at least, which is definitely helpful, especially when you're just starting out. Stickers, I said Vistaprint earlier. They do stickers, but I specifically have used in the past for my own Rock and Monkey because they have a ton of options for things like I have holographic stickers. They do holographic stickers. You can get stickers in rolls. You can get large stickers, small stickers. You can get sticker sheets. They're definitely a resource that has helped me in the past. And they also have a sample pack. So you can request very specific samples from them. I believe, I can't remember exactly, but I think I paid like $2 for their sample pack. And I have a box of them somewhere so I can see the quality of the holographic ones, the quality of the matte stickers, the shiny stickers. It's really great. And lastly, because I do zines and small books and like magazine type work, especially if you're building a portfolio, I recommend Mixin. They are great with zines. They print cleanly. Everything is very well put together. The colors are super accurate, at least from my own experience. And they definitely are, they ship quickly. They're relatively good in price, especially buying in bulk, which is absolutely something to think about, especially if you're doing a book and you expect to sell a lot of it, or not necessarily a book, but something relatively close to a book. They're pretty cheap and definitely someone I would recommend. I've recommended it to a lot of my friends who make zines, especially like higher quality zines, ones that are stapled. You can get things binded. Really, really great resource if you're doing more comic-based magazine things. And like I said earlier, for portfolios as well. So now I'm just going to move into merch purchasing. So something that every artist has to think about is if they're going to buy in bulk or not. And that depends on both prints, but it also depends on products. You never really know how much is going to sell of your work. So it's definitely something to always keep in mind if you have the option to buy in bulk, or if you think you should just buy a couple at a time to kind of feel it out, how well it does. Generally though, bulk options are cheaper, which is super helpful. My posters that I recently did, I did test prints of them. They were a little expensive, so I was a little hesitant, but I opened pre-orders. And now that I know a little bit of how many I should get, I'll be able to buy in bulk to bring the price down considerably. It depends on each site, but it's definitely something to think about, especially if you have more than one product, or you only have a few, or just kind of in general how well things sell. And especially if you don't really have the resources to do a lot of test prints and keep printing over and over. Sometimes you just want to buy in bulk and get it done once and done. Definitely also something to think about with buying in bulk is how quickly you can produce a product. So just for example, I made tote bags recently. I ordered the bags off a site like I said, did a lot of research, and then I block printed on them. So if you're doing something like that, where you're buying a product to specifically alter it, you should think a little bit about how long it's going to take you. So if you're buying, say, 100 bags, how quickly can you alter or embellish 100 bags for sale? Or is it something that you're going to do only a few, see how they sell, and save a little bit? Just a lot of things to think about, especially with big products. And for pricing, definitely if you can, look at wholesale pricing or reduced pricing for buying a lot of. This one is definitely not a requirement, but I personally try and make ethical choices with all of my products. That's a photo of the inside of the tote bags I just bought. I very specifically bought ones made with recycled cotton and recycled material because I would like to put that energy back out into the world. My, excuse me, my sticker bags have The plastic is compostable. Something that I always think about, I try to use as little plastic in my send-offs as I can. Like I said, definitely not a requirement, but if you care about that kind of thing, definitely something to think about, especially with the people that are producing your work. And also with purchasing, always think price versus quality. If you have to pay a lot to get something, to get a lot of prints, or to get a lot of a product to embellish, how much is that going to cost you digging into your profits? So it's kind of a thing to think about when you're thinking about, okay, so say I want to charge $10 for this print, but it costs $2 per print plus shipping. That's an $8 an $8 profit, which is great, but you do have to think about, well, is it worth $2 per print depending on the size? Is it worth having to pay extra for shipping, especially if you have to do expedited shipping? So definitely something to keep in mind, especially when buying what you're purchasing, either getting your own prints done or getting a product sent to you. And just in general, for art making, obviously you can make whatever you want. It definitely helps sometimes though to do things based around specific holidays. I see a ton of sales go out during the holidays. A ton of people that I know that are artists and have shops will make things specifically for holidays. Christmas is a big one. Valentine's Day is a big one, and people love it. They eat it up. That depends on the artist. I personally don't usually do things based around a certain holiday. I'd rather have a sale instead of my current products. That being said, I am working on some Halloween prints right now because I personally very much enjoy the fall and October, and it's something I'm definitely going to market very specifically to this time of year. But again, it's not a requirement. And it's definitely not for everyone either, especially if you're not a big holiday person or someone who just, they'd rather, like me, make their own work and see how it goes instead of looking at specific trends that are happening throughout the year. But definitely also if you live in a specific place, and a lot of people like buying Christmas ornaments, might not be a bad idea to think about putting existing art of yours on an ornament, something fairly easy and simple, but again, not anything anyone has to do to sell their work. Something to remember, anything you make can be turned into a product, but not everything you make has to become one. It's definitely something I need to remind myself a lot of, especially because I've spent, with revamping my store this summer, I've spent so much time making new products that I'm not necessarily always making art just to make art. And it's great because I'm able to put new things in my store. I'm able to make money. I'm able to engage with more people through it. But sometimes you have to take a step back and be able to look at your own work and say, okay, so this is what I'm going to sell, but this will be for me, or this will be for a friend, or something that's entirely private. You don't even have to justify it. You just kind of want to go for it. But on the other side, if you do have prints that you really love, that was a personal piece, you are absolutely able to try and sell it. Like, you can do whatever you want with your work. Just know your own boundaries, know where you stand on these things, and definitely give yourself time to take care of yourself and your art making. So some of these things I'm going to talk about next, I talked a little bit about in my last presentation, but we're going to touch upon them again with merch because it's super, super important to keep in mind. Firstly, I'm going to talk about product packaging. So something that definitely is important to factor in with selling online is that no one can pick it up and touch it. They can't flip through a book. They can't feel the paper quality. They can't see really how it's presented other than in photographs, which is great sometimes, especially if you want to make sure everything is color correct and whatnot. And especially with photography, making sure everything's in the proper light to be seen. But something that definitely helps when mailing it out is having it sit in something or be wrapped in something, kind of almost like it's a little present. Not necessary, but something I found has helped. Like on the right, those are my stickers, and I made just a really easy label with them. The pattern is literally just the art that I use to make the stickers, and the back has my logo on it, and that's it. And they're in a little bag, and it's pretty simple, but it's definitely something. It holds them all together. It is something that makes it eye-catching, so people can just kind of pick it up, and you can get all four, and you can also sell it kind of as a discount, especially if you have multiple of an item. But just in general with these, for stickers, if you're selling them in a pack, I recommend little bags. Again, not necessary, just kind of makes it look nice, look a little uniform. If you're selling jewelry, I recommend sending it off in a box or something with your logo on it, or a sticker that you designed, or a stamp or something like that. Just so it's kind of like, so this is yours, but it comes from me. And ceramics I recommend, or small sculptures, I recommend the same. Definitely wrap those in bubble wrap though. I've seen many of broken art. It is not fun, but definitely if you want it, especially to be seen, like they didn't get it, they got it online. They didn't get it from a shop that they were able to walk in, but they have this little piece of your shop with them other than the work itself, just kind of as an extra reminder of where it came from. And like I said, it's not necessary. It can just add a little something to the sales, add a little something to the presentation. Definitely something I've found has helped. So this is a biggie with merchandise. Really, really want to photograph your stuff well. Not everyone has a camera. All my product photos, I just use my phone. I have a not necessarily older iPhone, but the quality is good. I use natural lighting just in my apartment, something fairly simple. It's there every day. It is definitely something that is on a must list with your work, is taking photos that are well lit and high, not necessarily high quality, but high quality in like how it feels, pretty much. I use my living room floor for the wood backdrop. I recommend using props if you have them, or using anything you have. Use whatever resources you have to make the work pop. Definitely if you have plants, if it's something that I've been using a lot in my product work is plants, signage. I try and make sure that everything is evenly spaced out. And I definitely try and make sure everything is well edited as well. If you are someone who's not great at photography, you have a friend who is, maybe they'll be able to help you out. Buy them lunch, pay them, definitely pay them in some fashion to make sure that your stuff really is able to stand out. It's definitely a huge component, especially when they can't see everything and they can only see what you've presented to people. Another thing that I found is super helpful is if you have prints, showing them in a frame, showing them up on a wall. I said this the last time, I do not have frames to fit every size of artwork I have, but a lot of framing sites online have areas where you can upload your art and it'll put it in a frame, and you can kind of choose what the frame looks like. And I just take a screenshot of that and I'm able to present it just very simple frame. It's not in like a space or anything, but it just kind of shows it right in front of you. And definitely with these two, use it for advertisement for your shop. Always use these photos in any way you can, because they will definitely help in promotion, in getting you out there, and getting attention for what you're trying to sell. So the next few slides are just some examples of my own product photography. So these are prints that I just did. I showed, these were all things I posted on my Instagram, just process work the day I was printing, just kind of being able to show, oh, like here is all the ones that I'm doing. This is the lino block that I was using. Kind of a contrast, but also bringing someone into the space in which you work. These are the bags from the same block. My mom got me that little sign thing a few years ago for Christmas, and I never really used it until I realized I could use it in my product photography. And it's definitely become a resource, especially with something like this, where I can kind of angle it around a specific topic. It's definitely helped out just in this respect. Again, that's just my living room floor. That is my partner's record player. That's my front door. I just use what I have at my disposal. I try to not make it too complicated or too cluttered, make sure that the print or the object is right there. This is the poster that I just opened pre-orders up for. The photo on the left, just my living room. I rearranged a bunch of things so that I was able to have mostly my art on the walls. Those are all existing places of other art in my house that I took down and put these up in its place. This, again, it's just being able to advertise the work, what it looks like in a space. And on the right is just a photo of it zoomed in, being able to look at details, especially with larger objects. It's good to be able to show that kind of variety in it, not just straight up front and center. Being able to zoom in and really show people the detail of all the work you put in to get this where it is. And lastly, we're going to talk about pricing and money. I know a lot of people get uncomfortable talking about money, but as an artist, it is super important to make sure you are getting paid accordingly. And with that comes talking to other artists, seeing how they price things, looking at other stores, seeing things that they have in common with yours. Are you underselling or overselling your work? Definitely something that needs to be reminded of sometimes. You need to spend money to make money. It really stinks, but especially if you don't have resources at hand, you might need to spend money on getting prints done. You might need to spend money on getting products made. You might need to spend money on a printer. It's all helpful in the long run. But when you're actually pricing your art, think about how much money you're going to make from it, how much you'll be able to sell it for, how much profit you'll be able to make. And definitely when you're pricing, think at least about three things. How much time it takes you to produce, because your time is worth a lot. How much money it takes to produce, because sometimes that factors in the quality and how much you'll eventually have to price your work for. And definitely look at industry standards. That's more, industry standards is more specific to freelance work, but it definitely helps at least to look at other shops, say, oh, this person is selling a print at the same size I'm selling my print, or I want to price mine at 10, but they're selling theirs at 12. That's something like that, like seeing the types of work that is selling for the types of prices so that you don't, especially don't undersell yourself. Because again, your work takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of everything to produce, and you deserve to be paid accordingly for that. Definitely another thing to think about when you're pricing is shipping. You don't need to have free shipping. You can just charge people for it. It is helpful. A lot of sites like Etsy are prioritizing free shipping right now, but they recommend that artists put the cost of shipping in the cost of the product, which I personally don't like. If I'm going to offer free shipping, I want it to be genuine free shipping and not upping the cost of my own product just to accommodate for a website. But it's definitely something to consider when you're thinking about your pricing, if you want to include the cost of shipping into your product or have it be separate. Also, definitely utilize the post office for prices. I usually go once and ship something off, and then I kind of get a middle ground. I'm working on getting a scale, so I'll be able to do it myself, and which is also very, very helpful because you have to weigh everything. You have to look at where it's going. I currently don't ship outside the United States because it does get very expensive. But if you do, that's another thing you have to think about if you're going to charge extra for shipping out of the States. And lastly, I just want to talk about breaking even is super good. Especially in your first round of doing this, breaking even is fantastic. It means you've covered all of your ground and you're only on your way up for making profit the next year. I I love going to conventions and being able to say, oh, I broke even, and hitting that moment during the day. And it's kind of like doing that with your shop as well. You're sitting and you can literally see in like the algorithms and the areas where they show you how much profit you've made. You can literally see the line of where you've broken even in some cases, especially if you know how much you've been spending on prints and things like that. But definitely value your art at what it's worth. It's super important, especially in this current climate, that you make sure you are doing what you can for yourself and make sure that you are paid accordingly. And that's everything for now. Thank you so much.